Good Tuesday morning to you. My name is Dan Kopp. I'm the CEO and founder of Leading Like a Buffalo, and I'm coming to you live from the greater Madison, Wisconsin area. And joining me, as always, Ty Firsching. Good morning, Ty.
Good morning, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well this morning. It's a beautiful day here, a little bit chillier than yesterday, but beautiful blue sky, so life is good.
That's awesome. And as for our viewers, if you don't know, my name's Ty Firsching, and I'm coming to you live from Entebbe, Uganda. That's in Africa. And it is 80 degrees, and it has been for 4 weeks. It's very nice. So if you have a problem with my viewing me, or if my audio goes, it's because of the heat and the transformers aren't playing nice. So Dan will pick it up, and I'll try and figure out a way to get back on if I can.
Right on. Well, good to see you. I'm looking forward to our discussion, which will start in a moment. But I'd like to remind those who are watching that you can always view our content over on our YouTube channel, the Enhanced Leadership Project. And also you can contact us directly on LinkedIn or our emails, which are scrolling along the bottom of the screen, ty@tradesecrets.com and dan@leadingbuffalo.com. Ty and I started a couple of years ago developing the Enhanced Leadership Project. And now that we're 2 years in, we continue to evolve as leaders. And that's what we always hope to do. And that's what we help our clients do. And we're going to be soon launching a remote Enhanced Leadership Project cohort. And so if you're interested in that, stay tuned and feel free to reach out to us for more information prior to us going live with the launch. So today's topic is a good one, and I'm feeling it today because I myself am exhausted today. So how great leaders turn exhaustion into energy. Well, leadership is difficult. That should be no surprise to anybody. It's a difficult thing. And in my book, I talked about when I was first an official leader in a school environment, and there was an hour one afternoon and back in 2007 or 8 that I remember not having something to do. Like there's always leadership to do, but leadership typically doesn't show up on your list of to-do stuff. And there's always, you can go talk to your people, etc. But I literally had no tasks on my to-do list. About an hour later, about 2 o'clock, I got a task, and I'm thinking back now, I've literally not had a task on my to-do list since. So if you think of that you've always got something to do, there's always something on your to-do list, that right there is enough to cause you stress and mental exhaustion. It's a nonstop process. I've got a close relative who's a farmer, and we were talking about his job versus my job. And I said, being in a leadership position is a lot like being a farmer, because there's always something to do. At some point in time, you have to pull the plug at the end of the day and say, what is in front of me now can wait until tomorrow. So another colleague of mine said something once, the good news is there's 24 hours in every day. The bad news is there's 24 hours in every day. And if you're not careful, you can use those 24 hours and let your job and your leadership position rule those 24 hours. And all those anecdotal things I think about when I think about exhaustion lead to our topic today. And is how do you energize yourself when you've got a to-do list that never disappears, or you're working 12 to 18 hours a day, 4 to 6 days a week, or there's always something waiting for you when you walk in the morning, whether you're up milking cows at 5 in the morning or you're walking to the office between 7 and 9 in the morning. There's always something. So one thing that helps me stay grounded and focused on that is realizing the exhaustion in myself. My people are probably feeling the same thing. So it's not just me. People are tired, and especially if you're grinding away, whether it's in a school year, you're on a project, you're working a line, whatever, people are grinding away doing their task, and that's mentally and physically exhausting. And mental exhaustion can be as bad, if not worse, than physical exhaustion. I've had some mental experiences over the years that at the end of the day, I just feel physically exhausted because of the mental gymnastics through which I had to go during the day to get through situations. So I recognize the exhaustion in myself. I recognize it in others. First step that I take to re-energize is to look within, to take care of myself. Most of us have been on an airplane when the flight attendants talk about the mask coming down. They always stress, put your mask on first, because if you're not breathing oxygen, you can't help other people. So put your mask off first, even though you may want to say, I'm going to put this on my toddler. I'm going to help the elder person beside me put theirs on because they're struggling. No, put it on yourself. So the same holds true when you're talking about exhaustion in an organization, in a leadership role. You've got to take care of yourself. And what I've found works for me is to unplug. Get away from what the things that are stressors on your time off. That's a huge one for me. Exhaustion, when you're plugged in 24/7, and if all of a sudden you're, oh, I better check my email. It's bedtime. I better check my email. No, don't do that, because you're going to run into something that you're not going to want to see. And that something, unless it's an emergency, can wait till tomorrow. Your people should know that if there's an emergency, they call you, they don't email you. So there's nothing that you can look at on your phone at 10 o'clock at night before you're going to bed that you can resolve then. So why put yourself through that? So unplug. That's step number one in my mind. Also, take care of yourself physically, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's consciously doing your step thing, and maybe you work in an environment that allows you to have access to a larger footprint in regard to the ability to walk around. So maybe you're doing that. Maybe you squeeze time in after work before you go home to hit the gym and do 30 minutes of cardio or 30 minutes of a light workout, whatever. Some way, shape, or form, make sure your body and your mind are taken care of. When you take care of those things, it's going to help you regain that energy. Before I get into other tactics, I'd like to toss it to Ty, see what his thoughts are.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And when it comes to exhaustion, there's several types, three or four. And the ones that come to mind are the ones you touched on. You have physical exhaustion, you have mental exhaustion, you have emotional and strategic exhaustion. So each one you need to deal with independently. The one that's real poignant for me was a physical exhaustion example. One time in a company I used to work with, my boss came in and he was flying back and forth. We had two offices, and he came in and he goes, "Hi, how you doing?" I'm like, "Fine." We talked. We were friends and coworkers, so we knew each other well enough. And he goes, I go, "Don't you have a meeting to go to?" He goes, "Yeah, in about 40 minutes, I got to leave." And he just lays down on the couch. He goes, "I'm going to leverage my lucidity for a little bit." And he just takes a nap. And he took like a 10-minute. I go, "But you're only going to get like 10 minutes. He goes, "Yeah, that's enough." And he goes, "It'll recharge me. I'll be physically able to go to this meeting, and I'll be lucid." And I thought, well, there you go, taking a nap during the day. That's something that you really don't hear about people doing, right? He was like, people are weak if they take a nap during the day. Well, not really, because if you recognize that you're physically exhausted and you're going to be no good if you're going to a meeting, then why not take a nap and do this recharge? And so that physical exhaustion was great. And then like months later, I was, Winston Churchill, always, always in there for a quote. He used to take daily naps all the time because he was physically exhausted during World War II. There was bombings going on, there was everything, and he would just go down and one of his quotes said, "Well, if things are too much and you're tired, just take off your clothes and get into bed," or something along those lines. One of his wonderful quotes that he has. And I laughed about it because I'm like, well, there is something to that. So that's one thing I do once in a while. I'll take a nap for like 10, not even, people say if you don't take a nap for over 2 hours, it doesn't do you any good. Yeah, maybe physically, but that recharge happens with just a 10 or 15-minute nap. Your brain gets changing out of its mental status, and it's going, okay. And then your body is like, okay, you're not physically tired anymore. You can push through for a couple more hours. Mental exhaustion is a huge one. And that's the one that gets most people. And I think most leaders, care, but a lot of leaders care too much in the wrong way. And that causes mental exhaustion if you're caring too much in the wrong way. So how do you resolve that? How do you fix that? It can be as easy as just stepping out, playing a game of cards, going for a walk, just mentally let your mind escape what like you were talking about, the to-do list is, and then come back to it later. There's another story by Eisenhower. The night before they stormed the beaches on D-Day, he decided, I'm going for a walk. And he went and played a game of bridge. And then he went and talked to the troops. He did not get nestled down in the details any further because the details were set. They were going early in the morning, whether they liked it or not. Nothing was going to change it because they'd already postponed it for weather at one point, like that. But so mental exhaustion, right? You have to do something for that. And Dan, you had it. You look internal because you got to know what type of exhaustion you're dealing with. The next one, emotional exhaustion, is a whole different thing, a strategic exhaustion. For me, if I'm emotionally exhausted, man, it can, it's not good. Because when you're emotionally exhausted, it means you can end up being short with people. And you're not intending to be short or rude, but it will happen. It's like, man, you're just overly tired. For me, I use humor. When I'm emotionally exhausted, I use humor to bring my elevation up, to elevate my emotional state. So I know that I'm less prevalent to being rude to someone or less prevalent to be short and curt. And I don't have to explain myself. And people expect it. So they know when I'm overly humorous in a leadership position, they're like, oh man, he must be emotionally exhausted, like that. But that's fine. Those are how I deal with it. And you were brought up those wonderful points of how you do the to-do list and you look at yourself. If you can't identify the reason you're exhausted, then that's another issue. And Dan, I think you're going to touch on that coming back in. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I want to touch on, before I get into organizational exhaustion, I want to touch on the emotional exhaustion. I had never thought of it as emotional exhaustion. I had thought of it as emotions making me exhausted. I think the slight nuance there, but at the end of the day, I think we're talking about the same thing. Where emotions, if you get inundated with emotions and you assume all the emotions, let's face it, we're talking about negative emotions here. If you're assuming the emotions of your coworkers and it's euphoria, well, that's a great thing. Good. But we're typically talking about negative, less than neutral emotions. So when you assume all those, and I picture like some type of disciplinary issue with which you're dealing, those are never fun for anybody. And it's very easy to get lost in the emotions in all of those things and just feel like you're getting beaten down, right? So what I do, I always focus on when I'm in an emotional situation that inevitably revolves around some type of discipline. I always put like, all right, this isn't about the human being in front of me. It's about the issue, the thing that occurred. Plus, I have to do this for the good of the organization. I've got to put the organization ahead of this one single person in front of me, despite what personally I think about him or her. It's got to be for the good of the organization. So that helps me consciously remove the emotion from what I'm doing, which stops the exhaustion because of the emotion. But when you assume the emotions of the people around you and it's going to wear on you. It's emotion causing exhaustion or emotional exhaustion. It's just going to wear on you and you're not going to thrive in that environment. So you've got to do something like consciously think that through and recognize it. I am letting the emotions of these people affect my emotions. You've got to rise above that and approach it in a manner that we're talking about the task, we're talking about the issue, the thing you said, whatever, versus I'm talking about you as a human being being bad. That helps me remove the emotion out of the situation. Now I want to jump a little bit to the other side of, I mentioned organizational exhaustion when I started. So at times you're in the middle of something, whether it's a school year, a project, you're working in a manufacturing facility and every day pretty much looks like the next. Maybe you've got quotas, maybe you've got projects to get done and you've got, all right, this 9-month project, we need to get these things built in 9 months, or this 3-month project. So you typically find yourself in the middle of something. So it's good to set the table before you get into the middle of something and say, all right, people, here are the expectations. These are the goals. This is what we're going to do. And let's assume it's a 9-month project I referenced. And we're going to check in roughly after 3 months and after 6 months, and just to make sure we're on track. Well, you've got, however you do it, you've got to celebrate. If your people are getting mired down in whether it's emotion or physical exhaustion, you've got to help refocus them by revisiting where you are. We're 10% into this project. We're 50% there. We're almost there. Whatever the case may be, you've got to re-energize them and acknowledge what they've done. So celebrate where they are. Hopefully you don't wait until that 3 months and all of a sudden you've discovered a problem. You should be in tune with if there were problems. So at 3 months, you're celebrating. If at a month and a half you realize you appear to be behind where you are and you aren't on track, well, you correct that. So at 3 months, you can celebrate. So oversight, expectations, celebrate the victories, small or large, and re-energize people. Show them that you're invested in mentally and physically, just like they are, and re-energize them accordingly and celebrate what they've already accomplished and remind them where we're going. I know we're only 3 months in. This is an 18-month project. We're 3 months in. We're right where we should be. You guys are doing great. We can do this. 15 more months. We've got this. Keep up the good work. I'm here if you need me, and we're in this together. So engage with them. Don't ignore the emotions. If you're feeling it, I guarantee you they're feeling it. And if you recognize that and you recognize they feel it, acknowledge it. Don't ignore it, internally or externally. It's going to go a long way in energizing your coworkers and ensuring the organization overall is not exhausted. Yeah, an 18-month project might be challenging and it's going to wear on a lot of people's nerves, but your job as a leader to keep them motivated and energized and recognize the exhaustion for what it is and verbalize it. Acknowledge it, celebrate the great things, help them through the low points.
Yeah, that's huge. I think when you're talking this organizational exhaustion business, I'm thinking strategic exhaustion in my mind, because when you have strategic exhaustion, it's not like just strategizing a way to get out of any of the other exhaustions. It's you have a year-long plan, and you're saying your check-in is 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, and you have to celebrate those. But also implementing, because you know it's a long-term plan. Well, you implement micro wins. You celebrate the micro wins in between your checkpoints, because that will keep you from getting exhausted and just like, oh man, this project is lasting forever. Are we ever going to get through it? If your people don't see that something's actually changing and they have something to celebrate, no matter how small it is, they're going to get burned out way quicker than if they do see that they're making some progress, no matter how small. If you celebrate using this micro win strategy for strategic exhaustion, I really think you were talking about strategic exhaustion, but I don't know the difference. But again, you had the other nuance, so that's mine too, between yours. Is that what you were talking about, or were you?
Yeah, basically, yeah, it was. So I'd like to highlight what occurs when Ty and I have these discussions. I was asked about a half an hour before I met Ty online this morning, what's your topic today? I said, I don't remember. We said it last week. I don't remember. And Ty and I rarely talk about the topic beforehand. Once we set the topic, we leave it alone for a week and we don't talk about what we're going to say, because I'm not good when I have a script. I'm much better when I am. Sorry, my phone is buzzing. You might be able to hear that. I'm much better when I don't have a script. And when we have an organic discussion, we run into situations like this where I'm saying one thing about emotions causing exhaustion, and Ty's referring to it as emotional exhaustion. There's a prime example: strategic exhaustion, organizational exhaustion. We didn't script any of this, and we're just sharing thoughts about what we've experienced in our 60 plus years combined experience in leadership. And we're talking the same thing, maybe just calling it differently. And that's what leadership is. Great leaders have different ways to approach things, but at the end of the day, they both have great leadership. And we just might refer to it differently. We're going to act differently. We're going to say different words, but at the end of the day, we still got great leadership. So there's a prime example of that. There are other thoughts that I have in regard to this topic, but I think we hit the high points. Ty, do you have any closing thoughts on wrapping this up, whether it's strategic, emotional, mental, or physical exhaustion? There seems to be a delay here, I think.
I think the major key is to check your personal state. And yeah, I noticed a delay. I think the key point is to check your personal state, know where it's coming from, identify the exhaustion because you treat one differently. But the micro wins, I think, go across all of them. I mean, if you're physically exhausted, take a micro nap, like that. Or you mentioned it, if you're exhausted, go to the gym. So I think that's very important. And you got to understand where you value. And if you are exhausted, you think about where you are and sometimes just changing your thoughts. Like think about something you're really, really passionate about. And that's going to change your entire viewpoint. So you're able to come into it fresh. And even if you just think just a little bit different and then come back to it a minute later. And that'll reset your mind because it's all about recharging in the instant that you're starting to feel this exhaustion come on. And if you can recharge yourself enough to get over that little bit of a hump, great things are going to happen for you and for your people.
Right on. Well said. All right. Well, hopefully you gleaned some useful tidbits in regard to exhaustion, whether it's emotional, strategic, physical, or emotional. And if you'd like to learn more, if you'd like to check out our content, feel free to jump on our YouTube channel, the Enhanced Leadership Project. If you'd like to go direct with us, you can contact us on LinkedIn or via our emails or at the bottom of the screen, dan@leadingbuffalo.com or ty@tradesecrets.com. We would love to work with you. We'd love to have you jump on to our next cohort in the Advanced Leadership Project. So if you're interested, stay tuned, and we hope to be able to help you as well. So until next time, we're two guys talking leadership, and the great news is you can do it. Good luck.